The mystery of the San Luis Valley, the ghost lights of Colorado, the door to the unknown light valley. Welcome, explorers of the unknown. You are in WanderGems, the corner where the planet's most fascinating mysteries come to life. Here, we travel not just with our feet, but with our minds, souls, and imaginations. If you are passionate about enigmas, places with hidden stories, and secrets that defy logic, you have just arrived at the right place. Today, we will delve into one of the most enigmatic corners of North America, where nature seems to guard an ancient secret, and the sky becomes, night after night, the stage for a phenomenon that science has yet to explain. Welcome to the San Luis Valley in southern Colorado, a majestic place surrounded by mountains, dunes, and endless plains, which, under the daylight, looks like a serene postcard of the American West. But when night falls, something changes. Something ignites. In the depths of the dark sky, lights begin to appear, floating, gliding, blinking, and disappearing as if guided by their own will. Lights with no visible source. Lights that have witnessed countless theories, rumors, and stories. They are known as the lights of the San Luis Valley, and their appearance has puzzled scientists, amazed tourists, and sent chills down the spines of generations of locals. Are they a natural phenomenon still not understood? A sign of life beyond our planet? Or perhaps the echo of an ancient energy, forgotten by official history? Join me on this extensive and fascinating journey, where we will explore not only the most striking sightings, but also the hidden history of the valley, scientific theories, indigenous legends, and accounts of close encounters that defy all logic. Get ready to open your mind and let yourself be carried away by a mystery that remains alive today, in the 21st century. Because in this valley, light not only illuminates, but also conceals. Let's begin. The stage of mystery, the San Luis Valley. Before we dive into the sightings and theories surrounding the mysterious lights, we must first understand the setting where it all happens. Because understanding the environment is the first step to deciphering the mystery. Located in southern Colorado, very close to the border with New Mexico, the San Luis Valley is a vast expanse of land surrounded by the majestic Sangre de Cristo Mountains to the east and the San Juan Mountains to the west. This valley, the largest high-altitude valley in North America, stretches nearly 200 kilometers long and about 80 wide. But what truly distinguishes the San Luis Valley is not just its imposing geography, it's its atmosphere. There's something in the dry air, in the wind that whistles through the hills, in the deep silence of its clear nights, that awakens a sense of ancient mystery. As if the valley whispers stories that only the most attentive can hear. Since ancient times, this region has been considered sacred by indigenous peoples, particularly the Utes, Navajos, and Apache Jicarilla. They spoke of luminous spirits traveling through the skies, of sacred fires dancing in the distance, and of signs from the spiritual world manifesting before the chosen ones. For them, the lights were not a strange phenomenon. They were a natural part of a world where the material and spiritual intertwined. Today, the valley remains sparsely populated. Its low light pollution allows for celestial visibility like few places in the world. And it is precisely in that almost absolute darkness where the spectacle of lights begins. But what exactly are these lights? Over time, witnesses have described bright spheres floating at low altitudes, lights that move with apparent intelligence, and flashes that appear from nowhere only to disappear as if they melted into the air. Some lights are white and pure like neon, others have blue, green, or reddish hues. Some remain static for minutes, while others travel kilometers in seconds, defying known laws of physics. And the most puzzling part, there is no apparent source. No roads, streetlights, or airplanes. Just the sky. This phenomenon has been so constant and persistent over the years that it has even led to a unique tourist spot. The UFO Watchtower, a small observation post built by a local farmer, where hundreds of curious visitors gather with binoculars and cameras, hoping to witness the inexplicable. But when did the reports actually begin? Is there any ancient story that speaks of these lights before aviation even existed? In the next part of this journey, we will dive into the earliest historical accounts of the phenomenon. We will go back to the days when Spanish explorers, American pioneers, and indigenous peoples documented their encounters with the unknown. Voices from the past, the first testimonies. For many, talking about lights in the sky may seem like a contemporary phenomenon, a modern obsession born with UFOs, cinema, and the space age. But what happens in the San Luis Valley predates satellites, drones, and 20th century conspiracy theories by a long shot. The first to speak of mysterious lights in this region were the indigenous peoples. According to oral accounts collected since the 19th century, the Utes and Navajos already spoke of dancing lights, or fiery spirits, appearing above the plains, especially on calm, moonless nights. For them, these lights were not a threat, but sacred manifestations, sometimes protective, other times bearers of messages or warnings. One of the oldest legends tells that in a sacred cave of the Sangre de Cristo Mountains, a shaman received the vision of a floating eye of fire that guided him for hours to a meadow illuminated by an inexplicable glow. Years later, that same place would be reported by settlers as a scene of lights moving as if they had a will of their own. But the accounts don't stop there. When Spanish explorers began to traverse this region in the 16th and 17th centuries, many left astonishing chronicles. In a report attributed to a Franciscan missionary from the 1770s, it describes how one night, during their journey from northern New Mexico to Colorado, their group stopped upon seeing floating fires that seemed to dance in the distance. They thought it was a signal from another caravan or enemies, but as they approached, the lights disappeared. Later, during the 19th century, with the arrival of American pioneers, reports multiplied. Some travel diaries mention red and white lights in the sky that seemed to move without any sound. They were sometimes attributed to witchcraft, will-o'-the-wisps, or even divine punishment. One of the most cited documents by researchers of the phenomenon comes from 1891, where a farmer named Elias Finch wrote in a letter to his family in Missouri, "I have seen lights that are not of this world. They rise from the ground like flames without heat, cross the air swiftly, and disappear when seen. My livestock watches them and flees. My dog does not dare to bark at them. I do not know if it is a punishment, a miracle, or madness." This type of testimony shows us something crucial. The phenomenon is not recent. It is embedded in the history of the valley. Long before electricity existed, before anyone imagined what a spacecraft would be. It is here that the question becomes more unsettling. How is it possible that the same phenomenon has been observed by so many cultures, for so many centuries, without a definitive explanation? Are we facing a natural manifestation still not understood? Or perhaps an intelligent phenomenon revealing itself through time, regardless of the era or available technology? On the next page, we will move into the 20th century, an era where testimonies begin to be systematically documented and where attention to these lights starts to grow until it becomes a national phenomenon. The 20th century, when the mystery ignites. As the 20th century progressed and humanity began to conquer the sky with airplanes, airships, and later spacecraft, the mystery of the San Luis Valley not only persisted, it grew. The fundamental difference now was that technology allowed for the recording of the inexplicable. Cameras, voice recorders, research journals, and official reports began to shape a growing archive of testimonies, many of which remain unexplained to this day. It was in the 1940s, during World War II, when the first modern reports began to attract attention. Local farmers and soldiers training in the area reported the presence of floating lights that emitted no sound. Initially, it was thought they could be weather balloons or military tests, but many of these lights made impossible movements. They changed direction abruptly, accelerated to unknown speeds, or simply vanished before multiple witnesses. With the famous UFO wave of 1947, starting with the Kenneth Arnold case, and shortly after with the Roswell incident, the entire country began to look to the sky with new fears and new questions. It was then that the San Luis Valley began to appear in some reports from Project Blue Book, the official U.S. Air Force investigation into unidentified flying objects. Although many documents remain classified or have been partially redacted, it is known that the valley was included as a recurring area of interest due to the quantity and consistency of civilian and military reports. In the 60s and 70s, the mystery reached a new level of unease, and not just because of the lights. It was during this period that reports of livestock mutilations began to surface. The coincidences were chilling. Cows found without organs, without blood, with precision surgical cuts, and always near areas where lights had been seen the night before. Terrified locals began to speak of the nighttime visitors, and some media outlets, though skeptical, started to pay attention. The theories ranged from covert military operations, attacks by secret cults, and of course, the most popular, extraterrestrial presence. One of the most documented cases occurred in 1967, when a rancher named Harry Snippy found one of his horses, curiously also named Snippy, dead under inexplicable circumstances. The animal had no traces of blood, its organs were missing, and there was a strange metallic smell in the air. Soon, journalists and ufologists arrived at the scene, turning it into the first widely covered animal mutilation case by national media. And yes, it happened in the San Luis Valley. From then on, sightings of lights began to be more directly linked to supposedly intelligent or non-human phenomena. The lights were no longer just bright points. They were entities with behavior, capable of interacting with the environment, with animals, and, according to some testimonies, even with people. On the next page, we will explore precisely that. Close encounters. Stories where the lights are not just seen from a distance, but seem to seek contact. Get ready to delve into the most disturbing and fascinating accounts from the San Luis Valley. Close encounters. When the lights approach. So far, the lights of the San Luis Valley have appeared as distant observers, floating on the horizon, dancing in the night sky, disappearing before we can understand them. But there are those who claim that these lights come closer, that they observe, that they choose. These are the stories that send a chill down your spine, not only for their intensity, but for their unsettling coincidences in details. Despite being recounted by people from different generations, with no contact between them, and with nothing to gain by sharing them, other than disbelief and social isolation. One of the most cited accounts occurred in 1982, when a young couple, Tomas and Lydia Gonzalez, was returning from a family party in the town of Hooper. It was around midnight, and the sky was clear. Driving down a lonely road, they noticed an intense blue light a few meters above the ground. At first, they thought it was a helicopter, until they realized it made no noise. The light began to follow them, maintaining the same distance, regardless of whether they sped up or slowed down. At one point, Tomas turned off the car completely and got out of the vehicle. The light stopped too, and hovered, floating in absolute silence. According to their testimony, at that moment he felt a pressure in his ears, as if the air vibrated. Lydia began to scream from inside the car. A second later, the light vanished in a flash, leaving no trace. Days later, Tomas was diagnosed with sudden tinnitus, a constant ringing in the ears with no apparent medical cause, and Lydia suffered a series of recurring nightmares featuring luminous figures and faceless eyes watching her from a meadow. They were not the only ones. That same year, a woman named Helen Padilla, a retired teacher from the area, described seeing an intense white light in her bedroom, despite the windows being closed and there being no moon that night. The light lasted only a few seconds, but the next morning, she found a circular mark in the field behind her house. The grass was burned and perfectly defined. Local investigators took soil samples. The result was unsettling: alteration of the mineral content in the affected area and traces of extreme heat, greater than what a campfire or agricultural machinery could cause. As these stories piled up, a community of witnesses was born. People who, caught between shame and the need to be heard, began to gather to share similar experiences. They described lights that made electrical devices flicker, that interfered with clocks, that woke animals in the middle of the night. And in some cases, they spoke of eye contact. One of the most controversial witnesses, a man named Ray Duran, recounted that during an outing in 1994 at the edge of the valley, he observed a light hovering a few meters away from him. And within it, he claimed, he saw a slender humanoid figure, wrapped in a glow so intense that its face could not be distinguished. He said he felt total calm. And then, nothing. He woke up 4 hours later, with no memory of the lost time. Ray spent 2 years in therapy. He never tried to profit financially from his story. And until his death, he stood by every word. Was it a hallucination? Collective suggestion? Or are we facing a form of contact that we are just beginning to understand? On the next page, we will learn about the place where many of these stories have gathered and amplified. A meeting point for believers, skeptics, the curious, and seekers of answers. The UFO Observation Tower of the San Luis Valley. A place where mystery is not only observed, it is celebrated. The UFO Observation Tower, the heart of mystery. In the midst of the arid landscape of the San Luis Valley, just minutes from the small town of Hooper, stands a structure as unusual as the phenomenon that inspired it. The UFO Observation Tower, or as locals and enthusiasts of the phenomenon call it, the UFO Watchtower. This is not an official site. There is no government backing, nor scientists in white coats measuring electromagnetic signals. But what there is something even more powerful: testimonies, shared stories, and a deep human need to understand the inexplicable. The tower was created in the early 2000s by Judy Messeline, a local rancher who, tired of hearing the same stories over and over from neighbors, friends, and visitors, decided to transform her land into a meeting point for sky watchers. What began as an eccentric idea soon became a magnet for believers, the curious, and even independent researchers from around the world. Today, the tower stands as a simple metal platform surrounded by flags, strange sculptures, and a kind of spiritual garden filled with objects left by visitors: amulets, photos, letters, figures, even teeth and locks of hair. All as an offering to them, to those who watch from above. From there, hundreds of people gather each year to observe the valley's sky, especially on moonless nights. The sky is so dark and clear that thousands of stars can be seen with the naked eye. And many times, something else. Judy herself has reported seeing more than a dozen inexplicable lights over the years. Some moved in intelligent patterns. Others simply appeared and disappeared as if they were dematerializing. But perhaps the most fascinating thing about the place is not what is seen, but what is felt. Numerous visitors have reported a strange sensation while being there. A subtle energy, a pressure in the chest, or even a sudden change in temperature. Some claim that their cameras fail just as they try to capture the lights. Others assert that they feel they are being watched. And not everything is limited to the skies. Next to the tower are two specific points where, according to mediums and sensitives, telluric energies intersect. These vortices would be natural portals, doors between planes or dimensions. Although for science, this is nothing more than pseudoscience, those who have been there swear that something different moves in that space. The tower is not just a place to observe lights. It is a sanctuary of mystery, a space where logic is suspended for a few hours, allowing imagination, or perhaps something more real, to take control. Independent researchers who have studied the area have detected magnetic anomalies, compass interferences, and some inexplicable radio emissions. Nothing conclusive, but enough to keep the question alive. And that is the essence of this place. It offers not answers, but increasingly profound questions. Could there be a geological, atmospheric, or even biological cause behind this phenomenon? Is it possible that everything has a rational explanation? Or maybe not. Science versus mystery, natural explanations. Although the mystery seduces us, science has never been absent from this phenomenon. For decades, physicists, meteorologists, geologists, and astronomers have tried to explain the lights of the San Luis Valley through natural theories. And while none have provided a definitive answer, all offer valuable pieces of the puzzle. The first hypothesis that often arises is that of unusual atmospheric phenomena. The San Luis Valley, being surrounded by mountains, the Sangre de Cristo to the east and the San Juan Range to the west, has a unique topography. These formations create thermal inversion conditions where layers of warm air overlap layers of cold air. Under certain circumstances, these inversions can refract light from distant sources, making it appear as if it is floating or moving in the sky. This would explain, for example, lights that seem to move without an apparent source, but does not justify their appearance on nights without traffic, nor their intelligent behavior according to witnesses. Another interesting theory is that of piezoelectric gases. The region is crossed by tectonic faults, and it is known that certain rocks, like quartz, when subjected to pressure or fractures, can generate electric fields. This effect, called piezoelectricity, could cause luminous emissions known as seismic lights or earthquake lights. These lights, although rare, have been documented in places like Japan, Italy, and Peru, and usually manifest before or during minor seismic movements, which in many cases are not even perceived as tremors. What if the San Luis Valley were constantly generating these electric impulses due to invisible tectonic stresses? Could those impulses ionize the air and produce visible lights? It is a possibility, although still unproven with direct evidence in the valley. Then there are the will-o'-the-wisps, a well-documented natural phenomenon that occurs when gases like methane or phosphine are released from the ground in swampy areas or those with high organic decomposition, reacting with oxygen in the air to generate a bluish or greenish light. This type of flame usually moves slowly and disappears with the wind. However, the San Luis Valley does not have large swamps, and the lights seen here do not behave like combustible gases. They tend to move in a straight line, stop in mid-air, change direction abruptly, or even respond, according to some, to human presence. Another hypothesis suggests that it could be poorly understood natural electric discharges, similar to sprites, jets, or blue starters, phenomena that occur at high altitudes during thunderstorms, producing unusual light forms. But these events are ultra-brief, while the valley lights can last whole minutes. Some scientists have even proposed that it could be aerial bioluminescence, a biological phenomenon not yet studied in depth. Organisms that glow in suspension, like bacteria or light-reflecting particles. However, there is no clear evidence that anything like this occurs in the dry environment of the valley. So, what do we have left? We have fascinating hypotheses. We have possible natural causes, but none encompass everything that happens. The appearances without a source, the intelligent movements, the interference with devices, the marks on the ground, and personal encounters. And it is here where, even from science, the mystery remains. On the next page, we will delve into the more speculative side, alternative and conspiratorial theories. From dimensional portals to extraterrestrial surveillance, we will explore the most radical ideas, and the most popular among those who claim to have experienced the impossible. Alternative theories. When science fails to find definitive answers, imagination and speculation take over. In the case of the San Luis Valley, alternative theories abound, from the plausible to the unimaginable. One of the most widespread ideas is that of dimensional portals. According to some researchers and experts in paranormal phenomena, the anomalies manifesting in the valley, the lights, energy vortices, and electromagnetic disturbances, are signals that doors between different dimensions or parallel realities open there. Imagine a place where time and space bend, allowing beings from other dimensions to cross momentarily into ours. These doors would be invisible to the naked eye, but the lights would be the visible manifestation of those transitions. This idea gains traction when we analyze witness accounts of luminous figures, sudden disappearances, and encounters with entities that seem not to belong to our world. Another theory, perhaps the most popular among UFO enthusiasts, is that of extraterrestrial surveillance. Many believe that the lights are not just objects or energies, but intelligent probes sent by advanced civilizations to study Earth and its inhabitants. In this scenario, the San Luis Valley would be a hot spot for extraterrestrial observation, a natural laboratory where human activity and local wildlife behavior are monitored. This hypothesis connects with the livestock mutilations reported in previous decades, and with accounts of close encounters where the lights seem to react to human presence. Of course, there are those who link these phenomena to secret military programs. From experiments with advanced technology to tests with undisclosed drones, some voices suggest that the lights could be prototypes or classified government projects designed to confuse or study the population. This theory gains strength due to the proximity of military bases and laboratories in Colorado, and because of declassified documents confirming secret experiments in remote areas. Finally, there are those who propose a more spiritual or metaphysical approach. For them, the San Luis Valley would be a sacred place, a meeting point between humanity and higher forces, whether angels, spirits, or guardians of nature. The lights would be manifestations of these entities, coded messages or signals of protection. Regardless of which theory resonates more with you, one thing is clear. The San Luis Valley is much more than a simple luminous phenomenon. It is an enigma that connects science, myth, culture, and spirituality in a fascinating and disturbing mix. On the next page, we will review some of the most recent studies and research projects that seek to understand these lights with modern tools. The Valley under the lens of science. Over the years, and with the rise of technology, the San Luis Valley has attracted a new type of researcher. Scientists, technologists, and enthusiasts with modern equipment eager to find concrete answers. In the last decade, the site has been the subject of several studies using advanced instruments, high-sensitivity cameras, electromagnetic detectors, spectrometers, radars, and drones equipped with thermal sensors. One of the most ambitious projects was carried out in 2018 by an interdisciplinary team from Colorado State University, which installed a permanent monitoring station near the UFO observation tower. The team collected data for 12 consecutive months, focusing on accurately recording and analyzing the appearances of the lights. The results were fascinating. They confirmed that the lights could not be explained by human sources or common atmospheric phenomena. Additionally, they detected patterns of appearance correlated with minor seismic activities and fluctuations in the local magnetic field. These data partially support the theory of seismic or piezoelectric lights, although they do not explain the intelligent behaviors that many witnesses have reported. Another interesting study involved the use of spectral cameras to analyze the composition of the emitted light. It was discovered that some lights displayed unique spectral signatures, distinct from any known artificial or natural light, raising new questions about their origin. Moreover, electrical measurements detected peaks of electromagnetic radiation that seemed to respond to human presence, creating a field that interfered with electronic devices. These findings have encouraged many researchers to continue exploring the valley as a natural laboratory for anomalous phenomena. However, not everything is consensus. Some scientists warn that this data is still insufficient and may have more earthly explanations that are not yet fully understood. For its part, the local community, which has lived with this mystery for years, continues to welcome visitors with stories, encounters, and a hospitality that makes the San Luis Valley a unique epicenter of mystery and culture. Culture and tourism. Mystery as identity. The mystery of the lights in the San Luis Valley has not only captured the attention of scientists and the curious, but has profoundly transformed the local community. For decades, the inhabitants of this remote region have lived among stories, encounters, and a shared fascination with the inexplicable. Rather than shying away from the mystery, many have embraced it as part of their collective identity. The rise of tourism related to the phenomenon has generated a new economic engine in the valley. Visitors from all over the world come to experience the unique atmosphere of the place, climb the UFO observation tower, and hear the stories from locals. Small businesses have flourished. Souvenir shops with themed crafts, cafes with murals depicting the lights, and guided night tours along paths where the most striking sightings have been reported. Additionally, annual events have been organized, such as the Festival of Lights, which brings together researchers, ufologists, artists, and the curious in a celebration that blends science, culture, and mysticism. This event includes talks, workshops, documentary screenings, and night excursions to observe the sky. It is a meeting point that strengthens the community and attracts an increasingly diverse audience. For the inhabitants, the mystery is also a source of pride and hope, a symbol that in this corner of the world there is something beyond the visible, something that connects the human with the unknown. However, there is also a delicate balance. The community knows that tourism can change the essence of the place, which is why they promote a deep respect for the natural and cultural environment, avoiding overexploitation. Thus, the San Luis Valley is today not only a natural or paranormal phenomenon, but a living space where science, mystery, culture, and economy converge. Recent testimonials. Voices living the mystery. What truly brings the mystery of the San Luis Valley to life are the stories of those who have been there, under its dark and silent sky, and have witnessed the inexplicable. From curious tourists to expert researchers, the accounts agree that the lights are not just a simple play of shadows or optical illusions. One of the most striking testimonies is from Maria Lopes, a photographer from Denver who visited the valley in 2022. She recounts, "I was setting up my camera for a star session when suddenly a bluish light appeared floating a few meters away from me. It made no noise, but it seemed to be watching me. I tried to record it, but my camera failed just as I wanted to capture it. It was a feeling I will never forget, as if time stood still." There is also the account of David Parker, an amateur researcher who has spent several nights camping in the valley. "I have seen lights moving in non-random patterns, accelerating, stopping, and changing direction in ways impossible for any aircraft. On one occasion, I felt a pressure in my chest and an electric buzzing in my ears. Everything happened in absolute silence." Many agree on the difficulty of describing in words what it feels like there, a mix of wonder, fear, curiosity, and a deep connection with something that defies all logic. The most surprising thing is that not everyone experiences the same thing, but there is a constant. The lights seem to respond to human presence. Some visitors have reported changes in their electronic devices, such as sudden failures in their phones or GPS, just when the lights appear. Others speak of strange sounds, whispers, or tactile sensations like an invisible touch on the skin. These personal experiences have fueled documentaries, books, and debates in specialized forums, keeping global interest alive. But beyond sensationalism, these stories remind us that the San Luis Valley is a space where the known and the unknown coexist, and where the search for answers is also a personal adventure. Myths and legends, the soul of the valley. Since ancient times, the San Luis Valley has been a special place for the indigenous cultures that inhabited the region. Their stories and beliefs have intertwined with the landscape, giving rise to myths that still resonate today. The Ute and Navajo indigenous peoples, among others, regarded the valley as a sacred place, a point of connection between the earthly and the spiritual realms. It was said that at night, when the moon hides and the stars dominate the sky, doors to other worlds would open, and luminous beings would travel through these portals to deliver messages, warnings, or blessings. These ancestral narratives speak of guardians of the valley, invisible figures that protect the balance between the natural and the supernatural. With the arrival of European settlers, these legends began to blend with tales from explorers and ranchers who also experienced strange phenomena, creating a hybrid folklore full of mystery. Stories are told of ghostly apparitions, lights dancing in the darkness, and whispers that seem to come from nowhere. One particularly popular legend is that of the Lady of the Lights, a protective spirit that appears as an ethereal figure dressed in white, whose presence heralds a supernatural event or significant change in the valley. Although no one has managed to capture a clear image of this figure, her story is passed down from generation to generation, reinforcing the magical atmosphere of the place. These myths not only provide a rich cultural context, but also demonstrate how the mystery of the San Luis Valley is deeply rooted in human experience, in our need to explain the inexplicable through stories that connect us to the sacred. On the next page, we will delve into the recent history of the valley and some key events that have marked its fame as a center of the inexplicable. Recent history and key events. In modern times, the San Luis Valley has been the scene of several events that have cemented its reputation as a hub of mystery in North America. Starting in the 1950s, when sightings of lights began to multiply, the valley attracted the attention of ufologists, journalists, and amateur scientists, creating an atmosphere of anticipation and curiosity. One of the most notable incidents occurred in 1969, when a group of campers reported the simultaneous appearance of multiple lights forming geometric shapes in the night sky, a phenomenon that was documented for the first time with photographs and credible testimonies. This event heightened media interest and led to the establishment of the first formal studies in the region. During the 80s and 90s, the scientific community conducted sporadic explorations. But it was in the 21st century that, thanks to advanced technology, the valley began to be monitored with high-precision devices. In 2003, a documentary produced by an international network brought images of the lights to millions of homes, further amplifying the reach of the mystery. Additionally, in 2015, a multidisciplinary team managed to capture on video a prolonged sequence of lights that seemed to interact with physical objects, causing disturbances in the nearby vegetation. This type of evidence has fueled debate and kept the San Luis Valley at the center of global attention. Recent history not only reflects advances in research, but also the persistence of a phenomenon that resists explanation and continues to challenge our perceptions of reality. On the next page, we will address the technical aspects of the recordings and audiovisual evidence that have been collected in the valley, and what they imply for the mystery. Audiovisual evidence and technical analysis. Over the decades, one of the pillars that has kept the mystery of the San Luis Valley alive is the audiovisual recordings that witnesses and scientists have managed to capture. From photographs to high-definition videos, this evidence has undergone rigorous analysis to determine its authenticity and nature. In many cases, the images show lights that defy known laws of physics, abrupt movements, changes in shape, and colors that do not correspond to conventional light sources. Spectral analyses have identified energy emissions that do not match artificial or natural lights, suggesting an unknown source. Moreover, several videos have detected light patterns that seem to respond to external stimuli, such as the presence of people or sounds. These intelligent interactions increase the complexity of the phenomenon and raise questions about the consciousness or intelligence behind the lights. On the other hand, experts have ruled out fraud in most recordings, thanks to detailed studies of metadata, environmental conditions, and witness testimonies. Technological advancements continue to allow for the capture of more precise data, including infrared, ultraviolet images, and simultaneous electromagnetic measurements. However, despite the abundance of material, the phenomenon remains without a definitive explanation, leaving the door open to multiple interpretations. Scientific and philosophical implications. The mystery of the lights in the San Luis Valley goes beyond being a simple physical phenomenon. Its implications reach both scientific and philosophical territories, questioning our perception of the universe and the very nature of reality. From a scientific perspective, the phenomenon challenges conventional physics, especially regarding energy and the behavior of light. Could these lights be manifestations of a form of energy still unknown to humanity? Or even hints of parallel realities, alternative dimensions, or quantum interactions that we are just beginning to understand? These questions lead to the frontier of human knowledge, where science still lacks clear answers, but research continues to advance. Philosophically, the phenomenon invites reflection on our relationship with the unknown and the inexplicable. It reminds us that, despite all our advancements, there are mysteries that escape reason and confront us with humility before the vastness of the cosmos. Moreover, it raises questions about the nature of consciousness and the possible existence of intelligences beyond our understanding. The San Luis Valley, then, is not just a place to observe strange lights, but a space to question, explore, and expand the limits of our knowledge and imagination. This phenomenon connects us with the eternal human quest for meaning, with the desire to discover what lies beyond the visible. After this fascinating journey through the mystery of the lights in the San Luis Valley, we have seen how an apparently simple phenomenon can hide deep layers of science, culture, history, and spirituality. We have delved into stories that challenge logic, theories that explore unknown dimensions, research that seeks answers, and a community that has made this mystery part of its identity. But perhaps the most valuable aspect of this mystery is the invitation to keep an open mind, to question the known, and to celebrate the wonder of the inexplicable. Because, in the end, the San Luis Valley reminds us that the world is full of enigmas, and that each of us is part of this great adventure of discovery. Thank you for joining us on this incredible journey through the mystery of the lights in the San Luis Valley. If you are passionate about enigmas, fascinating stories, and mysterious places around the world, don't forget to subscribe to our channel, WanderGems. Activate the bell so you don't miss any new videos, and share this content with your friends who love exploring the unknown. Leave us your comments, tell us what mystery you would like us to investigate next, and if you have experienced any paranormal events, we want to hear about it. Remember that at WanderGems the adventure never ends, and together we will discover the most surprising secrets that the planet has to offer us. See you in the next video, Exploring Gems!